Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants episode with us here. My name is Jesse. I hope I've had the chance to host with you guys before, but if you're new to us, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And you're catching us in an exciting day for two big reasons. Number one, we're almost done. A crazy school year. We will have done over 500 programs this year with scientists and explorers from all over the world. They're all on our YouTube channel. You can learn and discover about pretty much any topic imaginable on the YouTube channel right there. And I'm also really excited because I get to be on my best behavior and tell you a story myself today. It's so fun for me to get to host some of these incredible people, every topic imaginable from all around the world. But every now and then I like to hop in and share a story of my own. I hope you guys are excited. There's over 250 of you in, so I assume you're pretty keen today to go on a journey with me to Kilimanjaro and East Africa. Before I bring up the slide too, I want to note we are going to have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our Q&A, if you want to play along with a little 5-question quiz, you can pull up that game pen and do just that with me in about 20-25 minutes. I promise it'll be a little extra fun. YouTube audience as well. I've already told our StreamYard classes I'm going to be asking you some questions in the middle of my talk as well. So get those fingers at the ready to answer some questions in the chat. We are going to have a bit of fun. With that, let's dive in together. I am going to pull this up and let's go on a journey to Kilimanjaro and wild Africa. Now, I want to note this is my favorite picture I've ever taken in my entire life. It looks like something out of The Lion King, and it was so fun to get this shot. It's such a special part of the world, and I'm so honored to get the chance to share more about it with you today. So first and foremost, why go? Well, because it is the landscape from The Lion King. I grew up with The Lion King. I hope some of you students have seen it too. But the idea of going to a place with these incredible landscapes teeming with wildlife that usually most people only ever get the chance to see in something like a zoo or a documentary or a film was just magical to me. It is a place I've wanted to go since I was a little boy, and it was my university gift to myself. I finished my degree, and I was like, I am going to East Africa. Now, Kilimanjaro specifically I wanted to go to because it's a doable mountain. Kilimanjaro is the tallest mountain in Africa. It is an incredible part of the world, but most of the world's tallest mountains in various continents are way too big. Other mountains, you need gear like this. You need oxygen tanks. You need heavy-duty coats. You need to be a trained mountaineer, or you're literally putting your life in jeopardy. It can be a very challenging thing to climb some of these big mountains like Everest. It can also be crazy expensive. If you want to climb Mount Everest, you know what it costs? It costs about $70,000 to go climb Mount Everest. I don't know about you, but I do not have $70,000 just lying around, unfortunately. In my other pants pocket, maybe it'll be somewhere else, but not on me. So Kilimanjaro, you only have to wear things like this. You need a backpack, you need hiking poles, you need some light gear, maybe a little bit that keeps you warm as you go up. It is not that tall compared to something like Everest, but it is almost 20,000 feet high. We'll get more into the height in just a minute. So it's a doable mountain. When you go to Tanzania, everybody around Kilimanjaro has climbed Kilimanjaro. People at the grocery store, people on the buses, they've all climbed it before. So that felt extra doable, but also extra adventurous as well. Now, first, before I could climb it, I had to get there. Now, I don't know what your commute is, but when I was your age, I had to take a bus to school. About 20 minutes to get from my house to my school. Now, you can't take a bus to Tanzania. You have to cross an ocean. And if you try and take a bus across an ocean, that just does not go well for anyone. It just sinks right to the bottom. So you've got to take a plane. I love planes. I grew up right under the flight route. So every day, all day long, a flight from India, a flight from Korea, a flight from France. It was so exciting getting to see these planes come in. So I've always loved air travel. It is still like magic to me that we can go up in the sky. And so here's what I had to do. I had to get from Toronto on the left side of this picture to Tanzania on the right. It's not quite on the full other side of the world, but it is still pretty far. So I actually had to fly Toronto to Philadelphia. So our class today in Philly, yeah, you were my first stop. Philadelphia all the way to Qatar in the Persian Gulf. So this is one of the most incredible looking cities in the world. Everyone should look this up. I'm going to put it in the chat for everyone so you can look up what this place looks like. Let me pull this up and make a banner of it. Doha in Qatar is just, it's like a gleaming mega city, a shiny like Wizard of Oz mega city after like 2 hours of flying over the desert. It was so cool. So I got to be there for a little bit, and then I hopped straight to Tanzania. So it was 20 hours in the air, which is quite a bit longer than my my little bus ride to get to school. So how high is the climb? Well, for most of us, the thing that we think of when we think of climbing is the stairs in our house or stairs in our school. I grew up in a school with 2 floors. My house had only 1 floor. But if you've been to a second floor, it's usually about 10 feet between the first and second floor. In a big apartment building, it'll be about 150 feet or 50 meters. So how big is that compared to Kilimanjaro? Well, Kilimanjaro is 19,341 feet high. Now you get to start a little bit up it. They drop you off a little bit up the mountain, but it's still like doing the stairs in your house 1,400 times. Imagine climbing the stairs in your house 1,400 times in a row. You'd be exhausted. And I can tell you, I was excited to do this, but I was preparing to be pretty exhausted on this route. So what is the route? You get to the bottom, and there's this big map that tells you how many kilometers it'll take to get to each camp and how many hours it'll take to get there. So what you do is you go up in about 4 days and you come down in 2. So you're 6 days on the mountain, which is crazy. It's like the longest adventure time I'd ever spent out being rugged in the wilderness in my entire life. And I couldn't wait to get started. This is me looking like a little boy back when I was 21, getting ready to go up the mountain. And I was excited, and I'm so glad they wished me a good climb. It ended up being that too. Now you start off in this cool, kind of vaguely spooky looking rainforest area, and there's pretty beautiful birds that are flying around you. There's monkeys that are running along the trail. It can get really, really thick vegetation, so it feels wild and exciting and very, very neat, unlike anything I've ever seen in my life. And we got to sleep in these tents, so big, nice tents, very comfy, a little mat that was about 1 inch thick. So not too thick, not quite as comfy as your bed at home, but pretty comfortable as things go. And then we all gathered together in that big red tent to eat our meals. Now, that was day 1. The next day, we start climbing up the flanks a little higher. And you'll notice 2 things here. 1, there's an epic view that goes on forever. It was crazy how long this view was. It was dozens and dozens of miles or kilometers that you could see all across Tanzania. And 2, we're getting pretty close to those clouds up there. Well, you don't just get close to the clouds, you go into the cloud. You climb right through the cloud. And so it gets really misty and foggy and mysterious. Out of the fog, these big ravens, these big, beautiful ravens with this white neck come flying out. They've got like a 4-foot wingspan. They're a big bird. So they're really cool. And then there's these weird plants that look like nothing else I'd ever seen growing up in Ontario. If you look at the base of them, they've even got like shaggy fur. So a lot of the plants on mountains will grow this fur, or they won't lose their past leaves. They'll let it stay on themselves, and it keeps them warm, just like a coat. It's really weird. So we get above the clouds, and we got to camp our second night above the clouds, looking out over Mount Meru. So this is another mountain that we could see from Kilimanjaro, and I got this great shot of this guy looking out over it. And I can tell you, the night that we slept there, I woke up in the middle of the night, and the way the moonlight illuminated those clouds and that mountain, to this day, I'm 32, is the most beautiful view I've ever seen in my entire life. It was like being on a whole different planet. It was so, so cool. So you keep going and you pass more really freaky, weird plants, these giant things that really there's like no analogy for. They kind of look like cacti, but they're not. They're really odd. You keep climbing, and there's a place they tell you, they're like, oh, you're going to be going on the Kissing Rock. And they call it that because you have to squeeze yourself so close to it that you're like kissing the rock. Otherwise, you could fall down. So I got kind of scared about this. But when you're actually doing it, it wasn't too scary. It was very easy. There's our nice guide, Wampuzi. He was helping us out, making sure we were all good. So whew, that was easy. But we've been hiking for 3 days at this point, and this is still how much more we have to go. It's crazy. This looked like it went as high as the sky could go. It was insane. So we get to base camp. And base camp is the camp that you have before you attempt to climb to the summit. And at base camp, you're so high up, you're about 15,000 feet up, that there's so little oxygen in the air. The higher you go, the less air there is to breathe. That even walking the distance of your classroom, so imagine walking from the front to the back of your classroom, is exhausting. You're like out of breath, like you've been in gym just from walking in the classroom. Well, you get to go to bed at 10 p.m. and they wake you up at midnight. And I can tell you, none of us slept. So we just stayed awake all night long. And they wake you up at midnight, and you put on these crazy powerful headlamps, and you start walking up, and you keep walking and walking and walking. I think it was 6 hours we walked straight up from the base camp to the summit in the middle of the night. There's so little oxygen. I started hallucinating, which means your brain sort of doesn't know what's going on. And what I saw was like the whole mountain covered in spiders. And there were no spiders. I just saw that with my mind because there was so little air getting to my brain. So it was kind of scary, but good. I was, I kept my composure, took some deep breaths. Some people took my pack, so I had less to carry. So that was very nice of them. And after all that, we get to the summit. Yay! So this is Stella Point. This is the first part of the summit. And that sounds kind of weird, but you get to this big flat area, and then there are 3 other places you can go up to from there. The highest one takes an extra hour. So I'd done all this hiking. I was so happy. And they're like, no, you got an extra hour to go. And I was like, that's sad. But it was sunrise at least, so it's very pretty. You get to walk up past this glacier, so this big ice field on the mountain, which is really beautiful, and you're way above the clouds, as you can see. And when we got to the top, 2 things were funny. Number 1, there were like 300 people waiting in line to get this picture. So that's kind of funny. When you climbed a mountain, it's the tallest mountain in Africa, and there's a big lineup like you're going to Disney World. And 2 is that I was so exhausted at this point that if you look at my face with the red scarf there, I was not too happy. I looked like this, like, because I was so tired and I'd seen so many spiders and there's so little oxygen. It was very tough, but so much fun. So happy I did it. One of the great experiences of my entire life. And so from there, I said, this is Kilimanjaro in wild Africa. So the first week of the trip was the mountain. It was amazing. So very happy. The second week of the trip was to the parks. Now, for me, growing up in Toronto, this is what parks meant. Robins and chipmunks and squirrels and cardinals and some really charismatic, wonderful animals, but typically tinier animals. Now, I don't know if you guys know what lives in East Africa, but their parks mean something quite different. So I want to ask, with these on screen and maybe some other things you might know, what would you like to see in East Africa? If you were to go to Tanzania or Kenya or any of these places, what's a creature you want to see? YouTube, you can type in the chat. Live classes, Philadelphia, let's get our class. What do you want to see? Yell it out. What do we think?
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, what animals would you like to see if you went to East Africa? What would you want to see?
You want to see an African?
There's so many. I love it. Okay. Live classes. I'm going to come to all of you. Don't worry over the course of the time. Elephant, zebra. We've got everything. Mountain gorilla from our Sarah in Ghana today. Mountain gorillas would be amazing. I would have loved to have seen that. But we set off in this Jeep. So like 8 of us can fit in this, and you can see there's like an area you can stand up and take pictures. This is our rugged vehicle that got us all the way across Tanzania, and you can't see it because I don't have it up. So there we go. It's up now. You can see the picture. So this is a great little vehicle, and our first stop was Lake Manyara National Park, and it is known as the Bird Park, but it had a little more than that. We had baboons, so monkeys in the wild. Again, I was so excited to see monkeys. I've seen so many in movies and TV since I was a kid, never in the wild. So these baboons were awesome. We saw antelope galore, beautiful, beautiful antelope. We saw zebra crawling into these marshes to get cool in the heat of the sun. I can tell you there's something special about seeing something that you've only ever seen on TV, movies, and National Geographic magazines in flesh. It was so, so cool. But best of all, in the first part, at the first bit, we saw the best bird. This is the best bird. I don't know what bird you think is the best bird, but for me, this is the best bird. This is called a gray-crowned crane. He's about 4 feet tall, so he's taller than half the kids in the audience today. He's got this beautiful yellow head crest. It's just crazy how gorgeous this bird was. And I saw him on the first day of our parks, and I was so, so happy. Then we saw the freakiest bird. This is called a marabou stork. He's got a 10-foot wingspan to be like a gigantic bird. And you can see he's got this bald, sort of sinister head. So when things die, when any animal dies on the Serengeti, on the plains, the marabou stork comes and eats them and plunges his head right in. So he's a freaky bird. We see him again a little later in this slide deck, so get ready. So we've been out in this sort of a little bit of river, a little bit of sort of dirt and plains, and then we went into this forest. The dust is blowing in the forest, and it turns out that the dust was blowing in the forest, but the whole family of elephants was walking by. So they just went right in front of our Jeep, like 5 feet away, which was crazy to see a family of elephants from 5 feet away. Honestly, this was our first day in parks, and I couldn't believe my luck at all we'd had the chance to see. So then we head off to our second park, and on the way we pass some Maasai herders. So these are the indigenous people of Tanzania, Kenya. We got beautiful, beautiful clothing. I wish this picture showed it in a little more detail, but some of the most elegant sort of robes you've ever seen in your life. These thatched buildings, usually in big compounds. In the distance, right in the middle, you might be able to see two warriors coming back from being out on the plains. So the Maasai people were really, really fantastic and welcoming. We saw them everywhere we went. Some of the nicest people I'd ever run across in my travels. So our destination, the main destination to me, was something called the Serengeti. So some of you kids might know the Amazon or the Great Barrier Reef. Well, one of the other iconic places on planet Earth for wildlife is Serengeti National Park. And you're driving along this plain. It's endless. You've been driving for 20 kilometers, 15 miles, and suddenly there's a gate. This is the gate. It's not much of a gate. It's just sort of a thing that you drive under. Well, the moment we drove under that, my favorite animal in Africa popped out, which is African hunting dogs. Never mind polar bears, never mind lions or tigers or anything else. These are the best predators on Earth. A polar bear succeeds about 10% of the time. So every time he goes hunting, he has a 1 in 10 chance of catching his prey. African hunting dogs succeed about 80% of the time. They are so effective and efficient at hunting. They're so beautiful. I was so thrilled to see them. It was so rare to see these that they put up notices in the visitor center to let people know, like, African hunting dogs have been spotted. So cool. We saw cool little lizards like this guy. We saw ostriches. Ostriches can be like 7 to 8 feet tall, and their kick is so powerful, it can kill a lion, which is crazy. So these are huge birds, amazing to see. They were everywhere on the plains. And speaking of lions, we saw lions. Lions were everywhere. And these are the two best looking lions that we saw when we were there, a male and a female. And what's going on here? I'm going to put it to you guys for a second. We see that the female here, she's got something going on. What has she got around her neck? Does anyone want to chime in the chat? Let's see. Miss Woodburn's class, I can come to you if you want to unmute your mic. What do we think's going on with our second lion here?
What's going on with the second lion, everyone? Celine?
I think it's a thing to see, like, what's happening with the lion.
It's a thing to see what's happening with the lion we got.
You are spot on. And our YouTube classes are saying the same. It's a radio collar or tracker. So there's all sorts of scientists that are out on the Serengeti studying these animals. So they're the people that know how many lions there are, where they go, how many ostriches, where they go. All the animals are studied by scientists. This is a radio collar so they can track this pride of lions. And way to go for knowing that. Great job, everybody. All right. So we finished eating the lions and we go to the visitor center and we see this guy. This is called a hyrax. And everybody I was with was like, oh, it's a hyrax. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's a hyrax. They're the coolest thing ever. Now, why? Why would I think that? What do you think these guys are related to? I'm going to come back for a second. And what do we think? YouTube chat. Miss K's class, 1-2s. I'm going to come to you guys if you want to unmute your mic. What do you think this hyrax is related to?
Annabelle? A squirrel?
Squirrel? I thought you were going to say squirrel. I'm so glad you said squirrel. Way to go. Okay. Miss Doucette, Miss Coburn's class, our Philly class. Let's see. We can come to all of you if you'd like. But Philadelphia, what do you think this is related to?
What do you think that is, guys?
A
Squirrel?
Everybody's saying squirrel. Okay. Well, guess what? This is not even close to a squirrel. It's not even close to a rabbit. This is the closest relative to an elephant, which sounds ridiculous, but is absolutely true. So hyraxes are the closest relatives to elephants in the world, which is wild. So that's why I was so excited to see them. And no one else knew why I was excited, but they were so wrong. They're awesome. All right, so we get to our camp, and it's beautiful going to camp. My goodness, what a gorgeous, gorgeous landscape. And just like on Kilimanjaro, we woke up the next morning at like 4 in the morning. It's so dark and I'm so sleepy. Why are we waking up so early? Well, we were going in a hot air balloon. So I'd never been in one of these and I was so excited to go up in the air. And on the day we went, it was really windy. So we get off and there's a few of us in the air. We're taking off. It's beautiful. We're seeing hippos. We're seeing big eagles in the top of trees. But it was actually too windy. We shouldn't probably have gone. They actually made a special exemption for us to go, but it made the balloon really hard to control. So you know what happened to us? We crashed the balloon. So this isn't us. This is the balloon after us that also crashed. The basket on the bottom of the balloon should not be sideways. That is not how the balloon is meant to look. Imagine hitting the ground at 40 kilometers or like 25 miles an hour. It was actually probably more dangerous than I felt at the time. It felt kind of funny at the time. But we did. We crashed a hot air balloon. which is an experience I will never have again. Now, fortunately, we all dusted ourselves off and no one was injured, and we went right back out and saw giraffes, the tallest animal in the world, whose tongue can be 18 inches long, who can be 18 feet tall. They are crazy animals. I absolutely adored seeing giraffes. They're one of my favorite things. We saw leopards climbing trees. Leopards are gorgeous, one of my favorite cats on earth. We saw cheetahs. And question, how fast can a cheetah run? I'm going to put this to the chat. You guys just want to type this in the private chat or on YouTube? Let's see. Who knows how fast cheetahs can run? You can give me kilometers. You can give me miles. Maybe don't give me like feet per second because I don't know how to convert that. But cheetahs are the fastest animal on land. And anyone who wants to chime in with how fast they go, Miss K's 1-2s, 100 kilometers an hour. You pretty much got it right on. For our American friends, it's about 60 miles per hour. So yes, cheetahs can go as fast as your car on a highway, which is insane. They are so fast, only for short distances, but they are the fastest animal on land. So we finished at the Serengeti and we went to Ngorongoro crater, which is hard to say. This is literally the inner part of an old volcano. And it's one of the most special places in all of Africa, or all of the world, really. It is the place where you have the densest concentrations, the biggest numbers of wildlife. So when we went in, it was insane. I'll show you some wildlife in a minute, but we camped on the rim, right on the edge of this volcano. And in the morning, you wake up and the sun rises, and everywhere you look on the rim, all the way around, clouds are pouring into the crater. It was like a waterfall of cloud in every direction. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. So just a gorgeous, gorgeous place. I hope everyone gets the chance to go there in their life. When we went into the crater, we saw rhinos. We saw baby elephants. We saw caracal cats. So you don't just have a house cat at home. There are wild species of little cat. This is a really, really rare cat. I was so happy to get this picture. Everyone, our guides included, freaked out at seeing this cool cat. This next picture is kind of freaky. So if you don't like freaky things, maybe look away for a second. But we were driving our Jeep along, and suddenly we heard a crazy cackling laugh, and this hyena walks by with a leg in its mouth. We were like, oh, well, that's not good for the thing that used to have the leg. And we came upon a bunch of hyenas eating a wildebeest that had just died. And there's our marabou stork friend to the left. He's just waiting for them to finish so he can get some food too. That's the thing. There are these predators out in East Africa. They've got to eat too, as sort of gruesome and maybe scary as it might sound. It is quite literally the circle of life, and really nice to get to see something like this. For me, as a biologist, it was really, really special to see these hyenas. You see how fat their bellies are? They're eating so much meat all at once. And last but not least, we're getting tired of just talking about this. We want to get to questions, so I'll leave you with a yawning picture of a hippo. They were magnificent. Did you know a hippo can outrun a human, and over short distances can outrun a horse? Hippos are crazy fast, which is wild for such a big animal. What are my takeaways before we go to our Kahoot? Well, wildlife is the best. I love wildlife. I'm a biologist. I love being outdoors and seeing creatures of all kinds, whether they're squirrels or lions or snakes or lizards, anything. Try new things. This was my gift to myself after university. It was one of my favorite things I've ever done. So special. You will almost never regret trying new things in life. And if you can travel, do. If you're lucky enough to have the chance to travel, and this doesn't need to be to East Africa. This can be like 20 minutes down the road. Meet new people, experience new things. These experiences never are not worth it. It is such a rich, enriching experience to have things like this. So I can't recommend it enough. Well, wild ride, Kilimanjaro in East Africa. We are going to dive in with a little Kahoot to test your understanding, have a little bit of fun. So if you want to pull up this game pin on Kahoot.it, we're going to play that. And then we're going to do questions. So if you want to start sharing questions in the chat, YouTubers, and if you want to start sharing questions or thinking up questions in the live classes, I'll be with you in just a second. But let's get ready to dive in with it. So for those who are new to this, the faster you answer, the more points you get. And what you win is my everlasting respect. So no pressure at all. And if you don't get them right, that's fine too. We just want you to play along because it's always more fun to get involved. So let's start with our first question. Drum roll, please. Dun, 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 dun. All right. 3, 2, 1. You can also yell these answers out in class if you're not playing along live. That's totally fun. Climbing Kilimanjaro is like climbing your house stairs how many times? 50, 100, 500, or over 1,000 times? Seems too many. I don't know. That's a lot of stairs. What do we got? Let's see. 17 answers in so far. Oh, everyone's getting their answers in. Fantastic, everybody. All right. What is our final answer? Let's see. Oh, everyone got it right pretty much. Yes, over 1,000 times, 1,400 times climbing my stairs. Oh, I'm exhausted just thinking about it. Eager Dove takes our lead as we go to question 2. All right, true or false? You need to be a trained mountaineer with special gear to climb Kilimanjaro. That was me with my big coats and my crampons and my ice picks. No, I don't think so. What did we say at the beginning? Anyone can do this. So that's your spoiler. That's the answer. You do not need to be a trained mountaineer with special gear. No, anyone, all of you can go climb Kilimanjaro when you're old enough. We had 18-year-olds, 10-year-olds have climbed it. It is a very doable mountain. It's very tough, but it's very doable, which makes it very special because it means it's opened up to the whole world. All right, Polite Swan takes our lead. Total change in our leaderboard. Question 3. Hyraxes are related to what again? What is it? Squirrels. A lot of you said that. Elephants, rabbits, groundhogs. What are they related to, these weird little guys? Let's see. By the way, so many questions in the chat. Thank you, everybody, on our YouTube class, live class. I'm coming to you live, I promise. Wow, there's almost 60 of you in now. That's crazy. The answer is elephants. Yes, these are elephants' closest relatives. This is something you can take to your parents' home today, and they will have no idea. You can blow their minds. It's very fun. All right, Eager Dove back on the lead. Question 4. 2 more. Then we're going to Q&A. Cheetahs can hit a top speed of what? What is it again? Let's see. 40 kilometers an hour, which is car on a side street. 60, car on a main road. 80, car on a small highway. Or 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles, car on an interstate highway. I think aim up, aim big. This is the fastest creature on land. They are crazy fast. Look at this picture. It even shows you how crazy fast it is. Yes, 100 kilometers an hour. Way to go. Okay, I'm going to skip our leaderboard for a very good reason. Because this last question has no correct answer. I just want to know what you think. Who wants to go to Tanzania? That's a very special place. You do, or you'd rather stay home. And that's fine. A lot of people want to stay home. My brother-in-law likes to stay home. My cousins like to stay home. I like to travel. It really depends on what you want in life. But if you want to go, I hope I've inspired a few of you to want to go because it's a pretty special place. So let's see. So many questions in the chat. You guys are crazy. I love it. All right. 51 inches. Wow. Like 80% of you want to go. Okay. Well, let's see what that does to our leaderboard. That wasn't worth any points. There was no points to that. So our podium is, drum roll, dun, 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 Decisive Owl was very decisive and came in 3rd. 2nd place, Polite Swan, who is a frog with a Elvis hair for some reason. And number 1, oh, barely, Expert Quail. Way to go. If you are any of these folks, let us know who you are in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we are going to dive in with Q&A. So I'll note in advance, we've got 15 minutes together for this, lots of time for Q&A. But if you don't get your question answered, email me. Email me like 100 questions at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, and I will answer absolutely all of them. I live for this. We are going to start with Ms. Gizzard's class 233 in Philadelphia, our American crew today. If you guys want to chime in and kick us off, you are good to go for a question. Hey, guys.
You got a question? Nah. Andre, what's your question, buddy?
Like
You gotta look at the camera.
the grandma, the questions. It was fun in the game.
I think they just really enjoyed it. We appreciated you having us here.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. Wow, man, I live for responses like that. That's so nice. Well, if you do think of any questions, I'll come back in a minute. We're going to go to our other Miss K's class, 1 and 2s. Hello, guys. Welcome in. Hi. Come unmute, chat. I'd love to hear from you.
Want to ask your question, Annabelle?
Hey, Annabelle.
Was it?
That place cool.
I'm so glad you thought so.
That place is cool.
Yeah. Did you think it was cool, Jesse?
I thought it was very cool. I've been very lucky to travel a lot of the world in my life. It's what I love to do with my time when I get the chance. And Tanzania is still one of the most special places I've ever been to in my whole life. So I'm glad you think it's cool. If you've got another question, I'll take one really quick, and then we'll head to Miss Woodburn's class.
Why? What was the thing eating again?
Yeah, so the hyenas were eating a wildebeest. So a wildebeest, I didn't actually get a picture of a wildebeest. I'll try and find one before we finish up the broadcast. But if you want to look them up, Wildebeest are like a big, weird, antelope-y creature. They're sort of odd. They're their own thing, but they're everywhere, and everything eats them. So lions eat them, leopards eat them, cheetahs will get them, hyenas. They're sort of like the roving buffet of East Africa, but they're very special creatures. Cool question. All right, Miss Woodburn's class, I'm heading to you, then Miss Coburn, and then we're going to take a whole bunch from you two before we do another round. Hey, Miss Woodburn.
Okay, Jenna, go ahead. This way.
How do you know all these stuff?
How do I know all the stuff? Well, thank you for the question. I grew up when I was your age, literally when I was your age. I wanted nothing more than to talk about science and nature for a living. Like, this is all I've ever wanted to do. So I'm so lucky. I pinch myself every day to get to do this incredible stuff. And so I read all the books. That's how I know the stuff. I read every library in my school library when I was your age, and then I had to go to the public library and read even more because I love to read. My mom made me love reading, and that was the best gift I ever could have gotten. So I love to read. I love to learn new things about the world. I love to go explore the world. That's how I know things, and I hope you take the chance to read as well, because it's never a bad idea to read and learn new things. Great question, guys. Miss Coburn's class, I'll come to you if you want to share one on behalf of Dalewood. Hello, Miss Coburn.
Yes, our students are at home, virtual class, and we just have a couple of questions. One, we were wondering how far you can hike each day, and we did see that when you were doing the descent that it was in the dark, and we were wondering why. And just to make a connection into the news today, they were saying that Mount Everest was one of the most polluted places in the world now. Did you see any signs of that on your trip?
Great question. So to answer all of them, the longest we hiked in one day, I want to say, was 18-20 kilometers. It'll be on that map at the beginning. I remember which day it was very vividly because we went from 3,900 meters to 4,700 meters and then back down to 3,900 meters, which felt really, but it helps you acclimatize and get better used to the oxygen. So the longest was about 20 kilometers. We came down in the day from the top. We went up to the summit from base camp at night, and we did that because the ground that you walk on at night is scree. So it's like lots of little rocks. And at night, the coolest holds them against the mountain. During the day, they slide around a lot. So we saw people coming up during when the sun had risen, and every step they took, they slid back down. When we walked up, it was pretty stable, and that made it a lot easier. Like, I would have absolutely been exhausted. I'm not sure I would have made it if we'd gone up during the day. And we saw a bit of pollution. There was a lot of the porters, the people that help carry gear, they used big plastic tarps. And so a bit of that plastic was all over the place. People also have to go to the bathroom on the mountain. So like there's no, in the camps, there are porta potties, there are places you can go. But when you're just walking up, you just go behind a rock. So that pollution is there too. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't a lot, but it was noticeable when you're going up. That's a very neat question. Guys, we're going to head to our YouTube classes for a minute, and then I'm going to come back to all you live classes. I love all these questions. Let's see. Miss Quigley's class, you've been asking a ton. Did you feed any of the animals there? No. And in general, in national parks, provincial parks, state parks, all around the world, you shouldn't feed wildlife. It's not to say you shouldn't necessarily throw some seed for birds in your local park. That's fine. But when you're in a protected area, you want to make sure not to feed the animals. They are wild animals. You want to keep them wild. That's very, very important. Great question. What type of food did we eat? Really well. So the tour company we were with for this adventure was great. So we had like full meals and chicken and trout and great rice. A lot of the porters ate a special meal called ugali. So O-O-G-A-L-I, that gave them extra energy and power to carry heavy things up the mountain. I never ate ugali. It's one of my big regrets. I was a bit of a picky eater back then. So I just said, no, and I really wish I had, but it was great food. Let's see. Miss Cork, do I want to climb another mountain? Yes, I'm actually going to be climbing a mountain in like 1 month today. I'm climbing Mount Fuji in Japan for my vacation with my wife. So I'm very excited about that. It's not quite as epic as Kilimanjaro. It's 1 day up to come down, so it's a lot easier, but I'm very excited to get up there. Let's see. Miss Croston, have I gone anywhere else in Africa? Yes, I've been to Egypt this past year for an amazing adventure in the pyramids and Aswan and Luxor and just an incredible history there. And I've been to Madagascar. So my biggest actual expedition, like a scientific expedition in my life, was in Madagascar. I got the chance to interview village chiefs in really, really remote communities, some of whom had literally never seen someone from the Western world ever. So it was a really an incredible experience. And I have talked about that on Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants before. Let's see, Miss Roberts, I'm going to take a couple from you, and then we are going to go back to our live classes. Let's see. Ooh, were you worried about predators when you were hiking? When we got to camp in the Serengeti, our guide said, if you walk out of camp and just leave and just start walking into the bush, something will eat you in like an hour. I was like, okay, so we're going to stay in camp. You really need to know what you're doing. If you are walking in parts of East Africa, parts of India too, anywhere where there are creatures that consider you part of the food chain, people prepare to go into those places, usually with a bunch of people, usually with weapons to potentially scare off any creatures that might come. So there are places that you can Africa is by no means uniform. There are huge monster cities in Africa. Africa is not one place, which is a misconception a lot of people have. If you're walking in the bush in one of the national parks, you do need to have people with you. You don't just go strolling by yourself because it can be dangerous with lions and leopards and other things. So I'm glad we got the chance to cover that question because a lot of people lump in the entire continent that way. It's not even remotely the case. Serengeti could be a little bit dangerous. And then, was this my favorite trip? This is one of my favorite trips ever. I loved the honeymoon with my wife to Iceland. That was very fun. But Tanzania will always hold a really, really special place in my heart. Live classes, we're back to you. Philadelphia, I'm going to come back. If you do have any questions, I can check. If not, that's totally fine. I just want to see. Any questions?
Does anybody have a question? Just say hey.
Hey! Totally fine. So nice to have you in. Thanks, guys, for the high energy. I love it. Miss K's 1-2s. Do you have any other questions? Let's see. Hello.
Lincoln, what's your question, buddy?
Hi, Lincoln.
I guessed how fast the cheetah went, and I guessed 100 kilometers an hour.
Way to go. That's amazing.
What do you want to say to Jesse?
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are so nice. Well, at the end, if you all want to come back and we'll do a big farewell together, but I love your energy. Miss Woodburn's class, if you guys are in, I can take it. I know you've been having some tech back and forth here. But did I have a guide? Yes. So when we went up Kilimanjaro, we had 4 guides, actually. So 42 was one of the guys' names. That's what he went by. Mon Africa, Wampuzi, and Kunda were our 4 guides. They were extraordinary gentlemen. They were so, so great. Without them, we would never have had a chance. Everyone who climbs Kilimanjaro needs a guide. And then we went to the game parks. We had some really spectacular people as well. I cannot recommend guides enough. Anywhere you go in the world, it's very, very special. Were there a lot of people? We had 10 people on each of those journeys. So small group, which is really nice. Some groups when they travel go with like 100 people. That seems like a lot to me, but 10 is like just, that's right. Nice opportunity to make some friends, meet some new people. Really, really special. What else do we have? How was it? And would I like to go back? Yes, I'd like to go back. I take my wife this time. She hasn't been to East Africa, so it'd be really special to go with her and see such a special place. It was just magical. I remember like to the hour of those 14 days. Like I remember everything because it was so unique and noteworthy, every experience that I was lucky enough to have. So thank you very much for that. Great question. Ms. Coburn, I'll come to you if you have one, and then I'll take a couple more for YouTube, and then we can wrap up from there. Dale Wood, welcome back.
Hey, well, Jesse, we were wondering, we know that your experience seemed to be exhausting. Can you tell us a little bit about the prep that you did? Did you change your eating habits? Did you have a fitness program before you went?
I was very bad. I did not prep that much because I was 21 and I thought I was invincible, which a lot of 21-year-olds think. All your teachers, ask them if they felt that they were invincible when they were 21. They'll probably say yes. So no, I did not train much. I climbed, you know what I did? It was hilarious. I climbed like a 40-foot hill and I did that like 10 times. And I was like, okay, I'm prepared. That's totally wildly unprepared. I was very bad back in those days. I did a marathon and a triathlon, no training as well. When I was early 20s, I thought I could do anything. And I did do those things. I was just really slow and really way more exhausted than all the people that did train. So kids, if you're ever going to do a big athletic feat, train, change your diet, do a little better than I did. Do as I say, not as I do. I love that question. Let's see. One more question for Miss Roberts. The biggest challenge I had on the trip was honestly being away from home that much for the first time. I'd never done anything like this. It was my first solo trip. It was way further than the furthest I'd ever been. It was, of course, the physical challenge of going up Kilimanjaro. One day I felt like I wanted to quit. Like I was so exhausted and it was so challenging. I thought I could just turn around right now. I'm really happy I didn't do that, obviously, because I had this incredible experience. But that was the biggest challenge. And I think it's nice to be in a situation where you have a few challenges when you're on an adventure, because it really drives home the excitement of it and the privilege that you have to be able to have adventures like that. So that's my biggest challenge. But honestly, 99% super incredible, happy as could possibly be. It was so much fun. Classes, I'm going to bring you in to say a big thank you and farewell. I love your energy and enthusiasm and everything. If you have any more questions about Kilimanjaro or Wild Africa, please do email us at exploringbytheseatofyourpants. You can also share that Hyrax thing with your family and friends later too. But 233's Miss K's class. Miss Coburn, thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now, everyone. Thank you so much.